Well, good morning, teachers and students. We have two school districts with us today. We have Prairie Rose and we have Medicine Hat Public. And guess what? We have someone from Prairie Rose is here with us too. So to start things off, Cami, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Michelle. And we are so excited to be doing CS First in Alberta, and not just Alberta, but in Medicine Hat. And we have communities joining from all around Medicine Hat. I know we have friends from IF Cox and Margaret Wooding in Redcliffe, and we have friends from Oyen and Acadia Valley and all over the place. So we are so excited to work with you today and get you coding. And so I'm going to go ahead and do a land acknowledgement for our area here. And Medicine Hat's a really special spot because we're actually on the border between two different treaty zones, Treaty 4 and Treaty 7. And actually our schools in Oyen and Acadia Valley, they're even from Treaty 6 territory. And so we have a very rich First Nations history in our area. And I'd like to acknowledge that the land where we are in Medicine Hat is the ancestral and traditional territory of the Siksika, the Kainai, the Piikani, the Stoney Nakoda, and the Tsuut'ina. And then from the Treaty 4 areas, the Cree, the Sioux, the Saulteaux bands of the Ojibwa people, and of course the Métis throughout Alberta. We'd like to acknowledge the traditional knowledge holders and the elders who've gone before us and those who are with us today. And I especially think of that during the season changes as we're going from the harsh, cold days of winter and out here in the prairies where everything's looking so brown, just as it's exciting for us to see the green nature pop up. Think of what that must have been like for our First Nations ancestors so long ago. And so we are so looking forward to learning more today, just like we've been learning for centuries.
Wow, so fantastic. Thank you so much, Cami. And I'm also in Alberta. I'm over in Calgary. So I share some of this Treaty 7 lands that you guys are on as well. And I agree with you, especially in springtime with the sun shining, just to appreciate this rich land we're on. So thank you so much, Cami, for everything you've done to put this together, as well as Blair from Medicine Hat Public. We know you're going to be watching behind the scenes, but we appreciate you kicking it off for us. So enjoy the lesson.
All right. I can't wait to see what we code today.
Woohoo! Okay, so students, you'll also know we have someone else with us. She's from Google. I'll introduce her in just a moment. We have some housekeeping items. So we're coming to you live via YouTube, which is great because teachers, if we're ever going too fast, if your students need to get caught up, you just pause us and we'll be here when you get back. You can even rewind. You'll be able to replay this. The recording will be there forever and ever and ever. So that's the good thing. The sort of not so good thing, you guys can see us. We can't see you, but we can hear from you. Take a look on the screen right now. There is a link. Students, this is where we're going to put you to work. Open up a new tab on your device, and we want you to put in that link that you see on the screen, the cc.page/csfirst. That's going to take you to a Google form. That Google form is going to ask you what's your name and listen to the broadcast. So we want you to test it out. Let us know your first name and let us know what grade you're in. We have Mrs. Grove's classes here from Burdett School. You guys were quick into that form. Welcome, Mrs. Grove's class. Who else is here with us? Let us know in the form what grade you're in. We'd love to give you shout outs. And now, speaking of shout outs, we got a shout out to Sandy Curry from Google Canada. Sandy, so great to be here working with you again.
Hi, Michelle, and hello to Alberta, and good morning. So we have Prairie Rose, we have Medicine Hat. We're so excited to be with you, teachers and students, today. And so I see that form populating, Michelle. We have Axel, Cassie, Emily, Chris, Kobe, grade 5, grade 6, a couple from grade 3 at Herald School, Crestwood School. So love it when we start to interact with our students. So what are we going to do? Today, you're going to have a chance to meet some Googlers. We're going to talk to you a little bit about computer science and a little bit about Google, but most importantly, we are going to get you coding with Scratch for CS First. have no fear. We have one Googler who's going to start at a really beginner level and show you hand over hand for teachers and students who've never done any kind of block-based coding. We have another Googler that's going to code at sort of an intermediate level, show you a little bit more of the capacity of the tool. And then we have another Googler who's going to sort of blow it out of the park for us, really show us some of that capacity of Scratch for CS first. And that might be a little more for some of our students who have already done some block-based coding. Teachers, have no fear. We'll make sure at the end of today's session you get an email. You will get a teacher's guide that will show you how to set up your own CS First class. There'll be office hours for tomorrow for anybody who has any questions, just any teachers who want to make sure that they have that class set up. And then we'll see you again on Thursday. And I think maybe Miss Cami might be with us on Thursday too, helping us teachers to get you and your classes launched with that CS First music and sound module. And we've got a couple of great documents that we're going to share with you as well. So Michelle, maybe we could start bringing our Googlers in just as I do a couple of other call outs. We've got Jordan, Danny, we've got Jaden, Ethan, is it Brighton, Damon, Sloan, Abigail, Ruby, Johnny, Alyssa, Maddox, Hayden, Tylee, Ellie, Sloan, Abigail. Wow, lots of folks joining us. And I see we have our Googlers too. So Elmi, maybe you could give a little wave hello. Scott and Peter all joining us. So teachers and students, Medicine Hat and Prairie Rose, we have this fun term. We call people who work at Google Googlers. And in the case of Elmi, Peter, and Scott, they're all volunteering their time to teach you, to teach the teachers and the students. So we also call them Tooglers. And so they're joining us today. In a second, I'm going to pass it over to Elmi. They'll introduce themselves and get you coding. But students, if you wouldn't mind as you're populating that form, just as we're coding with you today, think about any questions that you might have for our Tooglers, for our Googlers. And at the end, we'll have a little bit of time for Q&A. So we'll collect those questions in that form, and we'll be ready to go for Q&A after you've had the fun of doing your coding. So Nicholas, Riker, Merrick, Luke, Edwin, Coda, Wesley, Sienna, Tarina, Arizona, so many students joining us. So with that, students, I hope you have a lot of fun. I'm going to go backstage and I'm going to pass it over to Elmi. Have fun coding.
Hello. Now that I don't forget to unmute myself, and I can actually start speaking. So I did not grow up in Canada. I moved to Canada and did both of my university degrees here. I love science as well as loving math. So for me, it was natural to do bioinformatics option, meaning applying computer science to biological problems, and in some cases, applying biology to computer science problems. I worked locally in Waterloo, so did my university here, and now I'm working at Google Waterloo. So I'm going to pass this over to Scott.
Thanks, Elmi. So my name is Scott. I grew up in Mississauga, Ontario. I attended the University of Waterloo, where I studied computer science. I'm currently working at Google on a product called Firebase. So Firebase is Google's mobile development platform. And my interests outside of work are hockey, skiing. I love to run, stock investing, and playing both board games and video games with my two small kids. And I'll pass it off to you, Peter.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be with you guys today. So my name is Peter. I grew up in Kelowna in British Columbia. I studied computer engineering at the University of Waterloo. I started working at Google on Chrome OS, and working on Chrome OS was kind of a dream job because I started right on the day that Chrome OS launched and became a product. So I got to build some of the really early user interface. I did a co-op work with him at Facebook. I did run into Mark Zuckerberg in the hallway. It was so awkward. And my hobbies are cycling, hiking, and film festivals. So I'm just going to start it off for you guys. I would love it if you guys could enter into the form. Have you guys ever sent a message to a friend or received a message? Played a video game or watched someone play a video game? or bought something online or received something that was bought online? And I'm just going to look into the phone to see you guys' answers. I see Coda who says yes. I see Chris who says yes. I see Olivia who says yes. I see Mel who says yes. Oh, I see Haley who's done all three. I see Malcolm who's done all three. I think we can move on to the next slide. So all of these are examples of consuming technology. We use technology that other people have built because it would take a lot of time for us to do it, to make it ourselves. And the idea of technology is to build something which is a useful product or service. Software developers around the world work on building technology that other people use, useful services that improve the quality of life. There are also times where the product that you want does not exist, and that's an example of being a creative technology. So the creators of technology are both people who work on products which already exist and make them better, as well as people who just work on new products which don't exist.
So now that Peter discussed a little bit what it means to be creating technology or consuming technology, we can talk a little bit about Google. So most Googlers are consumers of technology, as pretty much everybody else in the world is. But to produce all the tools and interesting programs that we all use from Google, there needs to be a lot of Googlers. So what do you think? Please enter in the form. How many Googlers are there that code and create all of the awesome tools like the YouTube Live that we're using right now? So let's see. Oh, wow, you're all super engaged. Yes, Brighton, lots of Googlers, but do you want to guess?
I see guesses.
Yeah, like Pancho, that's actually a pretty good guess. And Brandt and Axel and Roxy. Whoa, we have a lot of people today who are actually guessing really close to the number. So, Michelle, can we please go? Yes. So there are about 100,000 people. Of course, not all of them are software developers because creating technology takes a lot of other jobs that you don't usually think about. For example, designers or testers or people writing documentation. But overall, there are over 100,000 of us. But also, when you think about Google, you usually think about search. However, we're not just search. So, do any of you know what those things on the pictures are? Do you care to guess? Sure, Willow, it's a car. What type of car? Do you know? It's actually not Google Maps car, Corbin. It's well, okay, I'll probably tell you what the car is while everybody else guesses what else we have. So this is actually an automatically the car that drives itself. And the first non-Googler that it drove was a legally blind person who would otherwise have to get a human to drive them around, but could go somewhere without another person with the help of this car. So I find it's awesome. So let's see what else we have here in the form. You have nice guesses there. Okay, so people who are saying it's a plane, it's not just a plane, it's a drone. It's created by Wing, which is a small company within Alphabet. And what it was used for was delivering goods during pandemic to certain places within states. It was the first such drone approved by FDA. And let's go to the last one. Do we have any guesses? Contact lens. Yes, that's a very nice guess, Elliot. The it's not really a display contact lens, but it's a very useful contact lens that makes somebody like myself who is very engaged with bioinformatics very happy. It's a contact lens which can be used to measure sugar levels for a diabetic person without them having to prick themselves. So this is a way of helping people other in way other than programs and search and docs. So over to Scott to teach you a little bit about coding.
Great, thanks, Elmi. And yeah, so now is the fun part, and it's time for some coding. So before we get started, can I get a big thumbs up from everybody who's ever done coding before? So I won't be able to see you, obviously, but I'm sure all your classmates are looking at you and thinking that you're pretty cool right now. And if you haven't had the opportunity to code yet, not to worry. I'm going to walk you through how to create your very first program using block-based coding with Scratch for CS first. So at the end of this, you'll be able to put your thumb up as well. So very soon, Michelle's going to be sharing a link with everybody to get started. But before that, I'm going to take a quick tour of everything everything that you'll need to know to get going. So once you receive the link, it will take you to this page that's being displayed right now. The activity that we're going to do today is called Animate a Name. I'm going to be walking through, kind of explaining how Scratch for CS First works. If you ever get lost or need to pause and want to come back later, you can return to this link. There's a number of useful video tutorials that will help you get started. And then if you want to come back after and explore some more advanced options, there's lots of cool extra features and little fun things that you can add to the to whatever it is that you decide to create today. Once you get the link, what you'll want to do is come up here under links and click on Starter Project. So I'm going to click that right now. This tab should load up for you. You'll see a welcome screen to Scratch for CS First. And you'll see two options. There's a sign in and a continue without signing in. What we're going to do today is continue without signing in. That way we don't need to create accounts and everything. And whatever you do create today, we'll be sure to show you how to share it or how to save it at the end so that you can continue on afterwards. So I'm going to go ahead and click on continue without signing in. And that brings me to Scratch for CS First. Oh, I think you're muted, Michelle.
Of course I'm muted. What do you think? Do we give them the magic link, Scott?
I think it's time.
Students, you think you're ready to do this? We're going to code alongside Scott. All right, here you go. The link you are going to go to, students, you'll see it on the screen. g.co/csfirst/name. And just like Scott did, you're going to click on that starter project. You're not going to sign in. And then once you're there, ready to go, you need to let us know in the form that you're ready to go. Elmi, are you ready to go? Peter, are you ready to go? Students, Scott's going to code at a nice, slow pace. If you've never coded before, kind of like Paxton. Paxton, you say you have no clue how to code, but you watch YouTube videos? I kind of think that's probably how you learn to code as well. But you can, if you need to, take it slow. You can watch Scott. Almi's going to take it a little bit faster. We'll see what she codes by the end. And then Peter, I kind of think, Peter, you'll probably knock it out of the park with some amazing code again. Can't wait to see what you come up with. Well, let's look at this form, Scott. I think we might be ready to go. We got Farah is ready. Elbin is ready. Oh, Damon's ready. Loves coding in Scratch already. Sloan is ready. Brennan is ready. Chase is in. I think we can go ahead and get started. And teachers, if your students aren't quite ready, this is where you can just pause, get everyone sorted, and then press play again, and we'll still be here. All right, Scott, I'm going to go back to your screen. You take it away.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Michelle. It's great to see so many people in the chat ready to get started. So let's do that. So on my screen, like I mentioned before, this is the interface for Scratch for CS First. The first thing I want to draw attention to is the top right window. So this is called your world. So this is what shows the final output of what we're going to be building and coding today. So it's our window into to see what we're creating. Now below our world, you'll see what are called sprites. So sprites are like cool images and pictures that you can add to your world, and you can do cool things through the use of coding blocks and instructions. So today's activity is going to be to animate your name. So my name is Scott. So there's 5 letters in my name. So the first thing I'm going to do is add 5 sprites to my world, which is 1 for each letter in my name. You'll see by default when you clicked on the starter project, it came up with the letter A sprite. Unfortunately, my name doesn't contain the letter A, but if yours does, I guess you get a bonus head start. So the way that I'm going to add the letters of my name is I'm going to hover over here under the world in the sprite section, and you should be able to select choose a sprite. Clicking on choose a sprite brings up a number of cool pictures and lots of fun things that you can play with. But today we're going to focus on letters. So right here, you'll see a menu item to select letters. Clicking on letters, you'll see a bunch of different letters of the alphabet in different styles and colors and fonts. So I'm going to go ahead and add the S for the first letter of my name. You'll then see the S appears in the world view, and you can click on it and drag it around. So I'm going to drag it right here. As I mentioned before, the A gets loaded up automatically. I'm not going to be needing the A, so in order to remove it, I'm going to click on the A, and then there's a garbage can icon in the top right that I'm going to click, and then it disappears. So now it's time to add a C. So I'm going to go back into letters. Let's add maybe a different style of C. It's a pretty cool looking C. I'll select it. It's in my world, and I'm just going to simply drag and drop it into a position that I like. I'm going to continue on until I have all 5 letters of my name. And I'm going to be selecting different styles. 2 more to go. And then the last one. And it's not just, there's lots of other cool pictures. You can search to find something that might be of interest. And actually, I can show you that in a second. Actually, let's not do that one since that's the same style as the previous T I had. Let's add a cool different style. So there we have it. I have Scott written across my world in a vertical pattern that I just laid out by dragging and dropping. So one of my favorite parts of Scratch for CS First is the ability to add a background to your world. So so if you go beside Sprite and under your world view, you'll see a label that's called Stage. You'll be able to hover over and choose a backdrop. Clicking on that comes up with a bunch of cool background photos. And then once you get more advanced, you could even personalize and customize and edit some of the images. So like I said, when I was introducing myself in my intro, I really like sports. So I can search for sports here, and I see this baseball. Baseball is one of my favorite sports, so let's select baseball. And now I'll just reorder this a little. Now the O kind of blends into the background. Let's try to do something fun. So let's remove the O, and instead of an O, how about we add a baseball, which is super relevant to having a baseball stadium in the background. So there we go. There's my name, and since this activity is to animate your name, what's up next is I'll be showing you how to make some of these letters like move in some pretty cool patterns. So let's start off with making the S move. So when you click on a sprite, you'll see that there's this big blank window in the middle here, and that's called the sandbox. So each different sprite has its own sandbox, and within the sandbox, that's where you're going to be dragging and dropping coding instructions to tell the sprites, or in this case, the letters, on how they should behave. I've just noticed in my list of sprites that it's kind of out of order. I'm going to move that baseball to the middle. It doesn't change anything in my world, but I guess it's good to be organized. So for the first letter S, let's try to add a cool effect where the S like bounces up and down. So looking through in the far left, you'll see code blocks, and there's a bunch of different types of code blocks. So there's motions, looks, sounds you can add. But let's start off with some motion. So the first one I see is move 10 steps. So in order to explore this further, I can take that code block and drag it into the sandbox for S. So in order to execute this code block, I can simply click on it. So let's see what happens when I click on move 10 steps. Oh, you'll see the S kind of moves 10 steps to the right. So every time I click on this, it continues to move 10 steps. So originally I said I wanted to make the S kind of bounce up and down. Moving 10 steps is moving like to the right or horizontally or across the x-axis. So that's not exactly what I want. Instead, I wanted my S to kind of move along the y-axis, or to move vertically or up and down. So since the S is now placed here in my world after moving it with the coding instructions that I defined in my sandbox, I'm just going to take that S and drag it back to where I originally wanted it. Since this isn't the correct instruction that I wanted, I want to remove it. So there's a couple ways to do that. You can right click on the code block and you can say delete block if you wanted, or you can just simply drag it off the screen.
Awesome, Scott. That's so great. And I also just want to let students know. So Scott put in a whole bunch of different sprites. If you can't find the sprite you're looking for, just keep looking, find something else. You can kind of do whatever you want. And then Scott, also, when you put your blocks in, if you could zoom in so those students can see those blocks in your center panel, that would be awesome. But otherwise, keep on going.
Perfect, will do. Okay, so next up, as I said, we want to make the S bounce up and down. So scrolling through the motion code blocks, I see one here that says change Y by 10. So that sounds promising, since Y is going to change the vertical axis. So dragging in now, I think that's pretty large. So you'll see change Y by 10. So clicking on this code block, let's see what happens. Perfect. So you can see the S is now moving up by 10. I'm going to go bring that back before it floats off the screen. So in order to make the S letter bounce, what we want to do is have it go up and then have it come right back down. So right here, it's changing the Y by 10. What I'm going to do is drag on another code block, the same type, but instead of going up by 10, I want it to go down by 10, and we do that by using negative numbers. So we're going to have it go up 10 and then down 10. So when I click here, there's the first bug of my program is that you'll notice I click here and nothing happens. So the reason that's happening is I can assure you that it's actually going up and down, but the cool thing about computers is that they execute code and run these code blocks so quickly that you can't even see it happening with your eyes. In order to fix this problem, what I need to do is I need to put in a bit of a delay. So it needs to go up 10, wait a little, and then it can come back down by 10 to give it that effect like it's bouncing. So in order to do that, I want to click on, there's the orange blocks, which are control blocks. and there's this cool block here that says wait 1 second, which is exactly what I want to do. And I'm going to kind of drag it over in my sandbox and drop it in the middle. So let's see what happens now when I click on change Y by 10. So it kind of goes up and then waits a second, comes down. So that's getting a lot closer to the bouncing effect that I'm hoping for here. So instead of just bouncing up once, let's have it bounce multiple times. So in the orange control blocks on the left, you'll see a repeat block. So dragging this into the sandbox, you'll now see that this repeat block is wrapping everything that I had just built out. So that means that clicking here should make the S letter bounce 10 times. And let's give it a go. Oh, and there's a second problem is that I was hoping that my S would kind of bounce smoothly, but right now it looks like it's kind of just glitching. And the reason is because it's going up by 10, it's waiting, it's going down by 10, but then immediately it's going back up by 10. So it doesn't really pause and wait on the way down. So in order to fix that problem, I'm going to then use another wait block, put it after the change Y by -10, and let's see if that fixes my problem. Perfect. So now the S is kind of moving up and down, which is giving a kind of a cool bouncing effect. Another thing is above the world, you'll see these two icons here. There's a stop icon. So that's the icon I just clicked on to have my code block stop executing. So if I hadn't have clicked that, it would have happened 10 times. I didn't want to wait all 10 times, so I stopped it early. There's another button up here that's green flag or go. Right now, that's not hooked up to anything. But what I'm going to hope to do by the end of this is click the green flag and have all of the letters of my name do something cool and be animated. I'm going to hook up the flag right now, but when I click the flag, actually what I want is instead of it happening 10 times, I want it to kind of continue and go on forever until I kind of click the stop button. So in order to do that, I'm going to drag out the middle of this repeat block. I can get rid of the repeat block now, and I'm going to add in this forever block and have the forever block wrap what's there. And now to wire it up to the start green flag, I'm going to just select this event. So it says when the green flag is clicked, it's going to, in a loop forever, have the S move up and down. So let's see if that worked. Perfect. So that looks like it's working. And now let's move on to other letters so that they animate as well.
Awesome, Scott. I got to pop in to let you know you've got 7 minutes left of coding, students. That means you guys only have 7 minutes left as well. But I love that. Let us know in the forum, students. What are you coding? What have you been able to do in just this first short little while? But I'll let you keep going, Scott.
Awesome. All right. So I'll move on to the C now. So when I click on the C sprite, you'll see that the sandbox is now erased because I haven't yet defined any code blocks for the C. If I go back to the S, you'll see what I just had. But let's get started on the C. So if I go back to the motion code blocks, this is a pretty cool looking one. This turns the C in a clockwise direction by 15 degrees. So again, clicking on it, each time I click on it, it rotates 15 degrees. So that will be a pretty cool rotating effect. So let's try to make it rotate one full spin. In order to do that, I would go down to Control and select a repeat block and wrap the turns. So we know that a circle or one full rotation is going to be 360 degrees. So if I say turn clockwise by 10 degrees, if we do that 36 times, I So one thing is once it executes instructions, or once you stop the instructions, it kind of remembers the very last state or position that it was in. So in order to correct that, I can click on my C sprite and you'll see things like size, where it's positioned. I'm going to go into the direction and fix that back to 90 degrees so that it's the proper orientation. So now when I click this repeat 36 block that will turn it 10 degrees at a time, you'll see a nice smooth rotation of the C. And similar to the S, I now want to hook this up to the flag so that they happen at the same time. So I'm going to remove it from the repeat block, add it to a forever block, and now wire it up to the go button. So let's give that a try now. So when I click the green button, the S and the C should animate at the same time. Cool.
That is cool. And Scott, we had Wyatt's like, okay, wait, I need help here. Wyatt or anyone else out there, if you're struggling at all, just pause, take a look at Scott's screen right now. Scott, if you want to zoom in on that center again, all Scott needed to do was put in those 3 blocks, and now he's got that C is spinning. And if that's all you're able to do, awesome, you're coding. If you're going beyond that, that's awesome too. But keep going, Scott. So now it's about 4 minutes left.
Awesome. All right, so let's go on to the baseball then. So looking at the motions again, this looks pretty applicable to a baseball, to glide over the course of 1 second to a random position. So I'm going to add that code block here. And when I click it, you'll see that the ball moves to a random place on the screen that's different every time that it gets picked. Just like the previous 2 letters of my name, in order for it to continuously do that for the animation effect, I'm going to just wrap that in a forever loop again, add the same event to the top. So now when I stop and start, you'll see the S is moving, the C is spinning, and the ball is moving. Moving on to the 4th letter of my name, we've done a bunch of motions. Let's maybe change the looks of it. So the very top one is a pretty cool effect where you can have the sprites basically speak or say something. So to see what that looks like, I will again drag the block into my sandbox and let's click it, and it will say hello. And now and it will say hello for 2 seconds. So maybe let's have it say hello and goodbye. So clicking on this, it'll say hello, goodbye. And just like the previous ones, I'm going to wrap this forever and go into hook it up to the start button. And actually, since this is a baseball theme, my favorite baseball team is the Toronto Blue Jays. I watched the game yesterday. They won, which was great. So let's have the T cheer for the Blue Jays. So we can say, let's go. And then it will say Blue Jays. So let's give that a go. So I'll stop it. And now let's start. And as expected, the T is now cheering, let's go Blue Jays. Maybe we'll leave I know we're running out of a bit of time, so I'll leave it up to your imagination what you could do with the final remaining letter in my name.
I love that, Scott. And I love how you kind of changed it mid-code. You're like, oh, I want to do this thing. And then you thought, no, I want to do this thing. Does that happen like in your day job when you're really doing coding for your day job as well?
Every time, like your initial approach is never the same as what you end up doing at the end. So everything takes a bunch of iterations, trials and errors, playing, debugging. That's very standard and happens day to day.
Love that. Well, do you know what, students? That's all the time that we have today. We are going to be back on Thursday to do more and more and more coding, but we need to stop what we're doing. Take a look, eyes up on the screen, because we've got some awesomeness coming from Elmi and some awesomeness coming from Peter. I know Sandy wants to see this, so I think we bring Sandy back here. Students as well, thank you. Evan, who told us you got an awesome background. Casey, you coded your name. Great job. Aiden, you made up and down bounce motions. Tristan, you've got a galaxy background. The rest of you students, go ahead, post in that form. What did you code? We'd love to hear from you. All right, with that, Elmi, are you ready?
Just a second, fixing the last bug.
Oh, debugging. That's a term that I know I've heard before.
Okay, so let's see. Okay. Oh, and there is clearly yet another bug. E should be looking upright, but I put the instruction in the wrong place.
But that's great. I think that this is so great for students to see. It's like, okay, you think you've got it right, you play it. It's like, oh man, that's not right after all.
Yes.
Well,
the main thing here was to have a lot of motion and signaling. So I've used a lot of the broadcast events. So I guess students can play with that.
but which is so great. Elmi, while we've got you on the screen here, maybe students, if you do want to save your work, now is the time to take a look up at Elmi's screen. Elmi is going to show you. Elmi, it's just up in the file menu.
Yeah, I'm just trying to zoom in so that I can
nice
clearly
job.
show what I'm doing. So you go into the file, you go into save to your computer, and it just downloads the file, and you can open it from there.
Perfect. Exactly. So students, you could either download it to your Chromebook or the device you're on, maybe put it up into your Google Drive, save it for later. On Thursday, we're going to be logging into CS First, and then you'll be able to bring that program into CS First later on. Wonderful. Elmi, thank you so much for that. Okay, Peter, you always have something amazing. As you are getting your screen shared, Peter, we had Hayden coded their name. Max in grade 6 coded their name to spin. Emery also coded their name. Roxy has a heart in there. Ooh, Coda, you have a bear that thinks you're hungry. I'm hungry too. Farah also has a galaxy. So Finishba is changing colors, moving up and down, rotating, and a cool background. Tatum has a concert background. Elizabeth, you put your name in a little fox. Foxes are your favorite animal. They are definitely very cute. All right, Peter, let's see what magic you got up to this time.
So I decided to. So I did a bit of work prior to the session, so over the weekend, and I decided to do a multitasking kind of game where you've got a bunch of tasks that you need to do, and I decided to build like a really old game where you run a restaurant. So if I click start, so the E wants coffee, and the T is in line and is kind of in a hurry. So if I select the P and get him to take E's order, and then let's get T seated, and let's get R seated as well, and then let's get the P to pick up the coffee and then serve it to the E. And then let's get the waiter to take T's order. And then we wait till the kitchen is making the food. And then we get to serve the food. Then we can bring alles order. So this is kind of the start of a multitasking game in the sense that there's a lot of things that I could have done but which I haven't done. For instance, none of the letters get out of their chairs, which in a regular restaurant game you would be able to do because like the last E, there's no space for them to sit. The both the T and the R order something random, but the E always orders coffee, which makes life a lot easier. So there's a lot of things. So I went part of the way there in the sense of it's a lot easier to solve a simpler problem. And
amazing. And Reed says, great job, Peter. Peter, and you also drew all of those sprites.
I did, and it's actually kind of fun in the sense that like I drew the thought bubble because it's really hard to actually get emojis in the thought bubble, but then like the drinking the coffee is just 2 sprites.
Wow. Amazing. And yes, Peter, I think it's just so cool for students to see you can use Scratch for CS First, block-based coding, and create your own game. Sloan says, wow, great job. Peter, it's always so fun seeing what you can come up with.
And this is not particularly a very complicated game because it's one of those things where you have little bits which are not very complicated. And then when you put all of the bits together, it becomes something complicated. But none of the little bits in of themselves is complicated.
No, exactly. Starting small and building on that. You've inspired Tia. Tia likes it and wants to do more coding when they get home. Lincoln wants to know how you did that. Let's just take a quick sneak peek at your code. Roxy says it's amazing. Nguyen says it's so cool. So you've got all of those sprites. Oh, there's a few
So
more
this is
blocks.
the code for the E, and it basically gets an event, kind of like what Elmi did in terms of listening for an event. So it just gets an event when the waiter is at the table, and if they have not ordered yet, they just order coffee. That's them saying, "Hey, I want coffee," and then here's the loop where they just go between the 2 sprites where they're drinking coffee like this.
And I love how you say, oh yeah, and it's, it really wasn't that complicated. How about Peter? Really, again, always so great. I think we have kind of a congratulations to all of you students as well. Elmi, you want to tell us a little bit about this?
Sure, yes. So now all of you have seen what we have coded, and we code for our everyday jobs, but congratulations, you have actually done your coding. And for a lot of you, it is probably the first time you've created some code. And I'm sure you can see that it's not that hard. You can learn and build on top of what you have learned. So here is your certificate. You are creative coders. You have coded for the first time and hopefully not the last.
Exactly. So great. Well, students, we're going to be jumping into getting to ask these Googlers questions. And so we've got a few posted already in the form, but if you have more questions for these Googlers, now is your chance. I think I'll turn it over to you, Elmi, to just take us through some of the questions we already have.
Sure. So we have a list of questions here, so I'll just go through them. So Maddie is asking, how long have you been coding? So I'm just going to randomly select Scott to be the first person to ask, and then Peter and I can probably also reply.
So I started coding probably in high school. So in grade 9 was probably the first time that I was really exposed to code and building a program. So I never started with block-based coding, and I kind of wish this was around when I was younger because it's a lot of fun.
So Peter, what about you?
I've been coding since about maybe grade 9. So definitely a lot less time than you guys have been coding because you guys are like in grade 3 and 5. So I started way after you guys did.
So for me, I started coding when I was probably 11 or 12. My first language was QBasic, so you had to first learn about binary and then start writing textual instructions. But I'm sure I would have done a lot more coding when I was younger if I had access to block-based coding because it's super fun. And I know a lot of kids enjoy it, my daughter included. So I am going to go to the next question. So Presley is asking how much people work with you in Google. So we have discussed that there are about 100,000 people, but probably Scott and Peter can tell us about their teams. So let's start with Peter this time.
So I work on the home team, and there's about 1,000 people who work on the home team. So quite a lot of people. I think I'll leave it up to Scott.
There's various groups that I get to work with. So there's people that are in my immediate team, and then depending on the project we're working on, we get to work with people across different offices, across different products where we're working together to integrate our product and have it play nicely with theirs. So yeah, opportunity to work with like a lot of different people across a lot of different offices in a lot of different roles. It's not just software engineers I'll have the opportunity to work with. It's other roles like product managers and project managers and designers and usability specialists. So lots of fun mix of people I get to work with.
Sorry, I got distracted because there are some very nice questions coming in. So I will try to continue in order, but we'll try to get to the questions that I really liked. So Lily has asked whether coding is important or useful in everyday life. And I really, really love this question because I think that's the whole point of doing presentations like this. Coding is a tool. You can apply it to pretty much any problem you encounter in your life. Like if I have a long list of things and I want to figure out if there are any copies there, I will not be doing it manually. I'll write a program that will check for duplicates. If I want to write like some text in certain format, or if I want a document that looks in a particular way, I'll write a program or use LaTeX, which is very similar to programming, to do that. So Scott, Peter, do you have anything to add?
I think you covered it perfectly, Almi.
Okay, so let's continue. This one is fun. So Savannah is asking, how many questions do you get in a day? And again, since I'm talking, I'll continue talking a lot. Some days there are many people who need answers from you, and this is part of the job, because if you have some knowledge, share it. So again, guys, what about you?
Sure. Yeah. And in addition, I also get a lot of questions, and they come from a lot of different areas. I'll get questions over emails, questions from the team in chat. And I'm not just getting questions, I'm usually asking a lot of questions as well. So I'm asking questions to my team, trying to learn how to do new things. And that's both within my team and then also just on like general internet, like chat forums. There's some problems that even at Google we haven't, we don't really know how to solve yet. So even asking people outside of Google how they approach problems and if they have any information that they can share that I can learn from.
I agree. I actually ask quite a lot of questions, and I get asked quite a lot of questions. A lot of people think of coders as a very solitary job, but in my experience, it's not particularly solitary. There's a lot of people. You're usually working with a team of 4 or 5 people, and you're interacting with them quite a lot.
So I know we're approaching time, but there is a group of questions that I think are very important to answer. So Jackson is asking, well, have you ever failed? And Ahmer is asking how hard was coding when you first started, and there is a number of other questions asking about how hard is it. And this is another very good set of questions. Yes, I'm sure everybody who is coding has failed at least once, because this is the usual process. You write something, you think it works, you check, you figure out it doesn't, so you go debugging and try to figure out answers and work with other people on fixing your own code. And at times it's hard, but it's also very fun. like again, I'll have Scott and Peter probably answer as well.
Sure, yeah, and yeah, I definitely fail all the time. Even during the coding demo I did today, there was multiple times where I failed or things didn't go as expected, and that's kind of the fun part, is to kind of learn from some of those failures, and that just makes you stronger and have a lot more experience to apply when you try to do it again.
I'll definitely echo what Elmi and Scott said. I guess I'll take the failure question in two different ways. One, have you ever failed in an academic sense? And the answer is kind of yes. I've definitely gotten 0 on a coding competition. So yes, I failed in the very academic sense. And in day-to-day work, yes, I screw up a lot. Hopefully it doesn't affect production, though that's happened to me once, and that was kind of embarrassing when I broke a portion of Facebook for a week. So hopefully we have things in place so that failures like that don't really happen. Like we look at each other's code and so forth.
I love that, and I just love I love the questions that are coming in. We have such engaged students in Medicine Hat and Prairie Rose, and I just have to say thank you very much, students, for being wonderful in this hour. And Elmi and Scott and Peter, thank you so much. Scott for taking our students hand over hand, Elmi for trying something on and showing sort of some of that funkiness, but hitting a couple little bugs in there too, and Peter, every time you do something for us, it's a little bit different. So the fun of code, just something new every time. Students and teachers, please join me. I hope that you will in a virtual round of applause for our Tooglers. I pull them away from their regular day of coding and problem solving and failing and answering questions and asking questions to put them out in front of you, and I hope that you've enjoyed it. I certainly think that it's fun for you, hopefully, to see these creators actually hanging out with you and doing a little bit of block-based coding. And so with that, we're going to do a fairly quick round, Tooglers, of final word. So, Scott, if I were to ask you, what would be your final word for our students today?
Just to remember to always have fun. There's so many different things that you can build and create. So if you're ever feeling like bored or frustrated with a project that you're working on, just put it aside, come up with something that you're passionate about. And like I mentioned before, what you'll learn is the second time you do something, you'll be able to do it quicker. It should become easier. And there's lots of valuable lessons from your previous attempt that you can carry forward.
That's awesome. And you're not perfect right away, right? You have to keep learning and having fun when you're doing that. Love that, Scott. Elmi, what would you say is the final word?
I would say go explore. Like anything you're learning right now, anything you read about can be a useful thing for you. So try to see how your math or your French or your English classes combine together to make your life richer and more interesting.
Perfect. Love that too. And last but not least, Peter, what's the final word for our students and teachers today?
So coding anything can feel very, very overwhelming. And as you get more experience in coding, you don't really get a whole lot of experience in coding, but the thing you get a lot of experience in is how to break apart a really big problem into much smaller problems. Like that's something you get better at with practice.
Yeah, Peter, I love that. And I think that's that computational thinking, big word, right? But taking any big problem and just breaking it down into that one little chunk that you can get your head around, and taking that first step and helping to break down that larger problem. So all really good lessons for our teachers and our students today. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Michelle. I see that we're sort of short on time, but I think students, you're off the hook because I think Michelle's going to give a little bit of homework to your teachers. So Tooglers, thanks very much. Michelle, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Yes, students. Today is the day your teachers have the homework, and teachers, all of the information is coming to your inbox. I'll go through it just super quickly. But those students, if we didn't get your questions, sorry we didn't get to them, but Kevian, Brielle, Ethan, Knox, Josie, Nico, all of you, thank you so much for being so engaged. All right, teachers, back to you. Email coming your way with all of the instructions to set up CS first. It needs to be set up for Thursday morning when we'll be back to keep on coding. You're also going to get a couple of documents that just show how coding integrates into the curriculum. Now, granted, these are Ontario curriculum standards, but teachers, you'll be able to see, wow, we can do coding in art and music and language arts, all sorts of different ideas. You will also get a student guide. Teachers, you make a copy of this student guide for all of your students. We have some of our consultants bottled up inside there that are going to help teach with you. And so teachers, you don't have to be the experts anymore. We've got all sorts of information to keep your students going. If you do have any troubles at all, we have office hours tomorrow night. Again, all this info coming to your inbox. And with that, Sandy, I'll turn it back to you.
Absolutely. And so in Alberta, we're waiting and watching for coding to become explicit in your curriculum, much like it is in Ontario right now, and working hard to spread the Scratch for CS First love with everyone. So we've had a lot of fun with you today. We hope everyone stays safe and happy coding, everyone.